Oh. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Unreal Engine livestream. I'm your host, Alexander Pascal, and joining me today is Mike Fricker, our technical director.
Hey guys.
Yep. In a minute, we're going to be talking about 4.13, but first, it's the news. There we go. So, Unreal Engine 4.13 Preview 1 has been released on the launcher. You can pick it up now and check out all the fancy new features that are on Binary. If you've been kind of keeping up with stuff we've been putting out there, you already probably know a couple of the cool things that are out there. But if this is new info to you, go try it out. Get on the forums, get on Answer Hub, give us your feedback about it. This is just Preview 1.
I think after this stream they'll know a lot about it.
Yeah, I think they'll have a lot more to toy around with and understand exactly what they're getting themselves into. But yep, right on your launcher, just do new engine version. It should be right there, 4.13 Preview 1. Pow. Oop. Next up, Shadow Complex. This is acting a little funky on me. There we go. Next up, Shadow Complex Remastered is now available on Mac. Pick that up if you're a Macintosh user. If you're using Windows, then you know it's already been out there for a while. But yeah, it's now ported over to Mac. Have fun with it. Shadow Complex is a fantastic game made by Chair. So excellent work, Chair. Pow. Next up. Oh, this got mixed up. Sorry about that, guys. But the preview has also got more info on the forums, a couple of bullet points, but we'll be covering a lot of this stuff today, too. So check that out. Let's see here.
This game's awesome.
Yeah, Abzu. So I have to kind of preface this by saying I was at GDC manning the Abzu booth at Unreal's big, mega booth there, and it is a fantastic game to play, absolutely gorgeous. And now it's available to the public. You can get it on Steam, and it's $19.99 on here. It's also available on PS4. Absolutely gorgeous game.
I was playing it last night on PS4. The controls are fantastic.
Oh, the flow of it is great.
It's really cool. You don't expect that you can do you can loop around so seamlessly with the controls. It feels so natural.
Yeah, they put a lot of thought into their use of animation, lighting, and just very dynamic scenes I swear, I think these fish are like a particle effect, sort of like how, let's see, I think it was Nick was on, talking about how we had done it for like Zen Garden, and you can kind of see some of those kind of interesting techniques, how they do groups of fish and all that. So, very impressive game, very gorgeous. I highly suggest giving it a shot. I know Chance has been playing it a lot too, because I saw him on Twitter talking it up. So, yeah, definitely play this one. Another definite one to try out, Everest VR is also now available on Steam. It's a interesting VR first-person experience where you get to, obviously, climb Everest, explore the mountaintop, see all the sights. Personally, would not recommend going to Everest unless you're really highly trained, but if you aren't, this is the pretty good alternative, right? You can do this from the safety of your own home, and worst case scenario, you punch a monitor or something, right? So, very cool game. So, next up, we have our community spotlight items. And as per the usual, we like to start off by saying thank you to all of our Answer Hub users, and especially our Karma Earners of the week. So, our top Karma Earners are Erasio, Diego Visualma, and Shadow River. Interesting, they tied for second, third there. That's really cool. And it's perfectly 400, 300, and 300. So that's actually kind of an odd little coincidence, but very cool. So you'll all be getting badges if you don't have them already. Thank you so much for coming out here and just helping everybody. And for all of you who made it on the board but not the top 3, please keep trying. Thank you so much for your contributions, and I know that the community appreciates your help. So
thanks for the support, guys.
Yeah, thank you all. I lost my mouse. Okay. So we have a small clip of this, and there we go. So we have a small clip to show you of this, but you've probably seen it. I also put this on a pick of the day and a couple other things a couple days ago, but we've been making its rounds. Clint, do we have a video to roll of this? I'm not sure, but there we go. Lost Soul Aside, made by the username Bloodrim, is a fantastic Final Fantasy inspired game. and it just speaks for itself. It's made by one person. He's still in high school, so he was doing this amongst studying and doing a lot of other stuff.
It's kind of like a third-person combat action game, right? Like
Yeah.
Bayonetta or Ninja Gaiden.
Yeah, it has kind of a feel of the later Final Fantasy series that were more action oriented, and that plus, yeah, almost like Dark Souls in some ways too. The combat is very intense, and the worlds are just gorgeous.
10 years ago. But now, a new one has come. Between human and the unknown monsters.
Yeah. Just the massive amount of environments that are kind of covered here is incredible, and then great particle effects. So you can see the full trailer online. I just wanted to show you a clip of it so you can get an idea. Tons of great screenshots here on the forum page, and a couple of animated GIFs that are really cool. Just absolutely spectacular particle effect work there. So cool. So yeah, check it out. Lost Soul Aside.
Yeah,
Great
nice
work.
Bloodrim.
All right. This next scene is made by Joe Chavaria. It's a really interesting scene if you've played the new Uncharted 4 game, and I have recently, and it's gorgeous. Great work to that team. But this was inspired by it. Really fantastic little scene. A lot to show off. I really love seeing environmental pieces like this. If you're working on anything like these past two projects, I encourage you to reach out to me and let me know so that I can highlight you and all the cool stuff that you're up to, and your studio, your team, whoever. Again, just fantastically gorgeous. Some of these shots, yeah, you can see the breakdowns and all that. And oh, there's my comment calling it cool. So as you can see, I fell in love with this whole scene.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's very gorgeous. And yeah, great work. Now, I'm not going to show you the video for this because it's a tutorial, and that would be kind of derailing a bit. But I did want to highlight this channel and this particular series. Tech Art Aid is a channel here on YouTube that's been doing some really interesting, tech artist tutorials. And as you can see, there's a few in here already, more to come, all that. But they're very useful. You get kind of an idea of what this is. It's helping you use materials to create more diversity in your material so it doesn't look so repetitive. There's a lot of interesting techniques in actual gameplay mechanic implementation. I love seeing YouTube channels like these. This one I think was sent to me by that team. So if you are someone who makes a lot of YouTube tutorials and I haven't had a chance to highlight you yet, please let me know so that I can give your channel a shout out, because I really love seeing these. So thank you to Tech Art Aid. It's always helpful to the community to see, people out making cool stuff.
I love to see vertex painting used with
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
like this too. It's awesome for creating variety, and it's
Mm-hmm.
it's probably one of the more powerful features you get in the level editor for per instance
Mm-hmm.
modification.
Yeah.
But it
it
requires
gives
some
it that.
setup. It requires some setup to use properly.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really fun once you get it set up right.
Yep, and this kind of gives you that whole the setup, and then how to implement it in a kind of actual what's the good word here for an actual proper implementation. Like you're actually going to use it in game for X, but when you're setting it up, it needs to look like this. So it's cool, and this one adds moss and darker patches and all that. But it's just a good example tutorial. Like I said, there's a whole series of these stylized colors, stealth effects, translucent materials.
Cool.
But they're making more, and that's also another thing I like to hear is if you're going to be making these, you're going to be making a lot more, just send them right on over. Cool. So that's what I've got for those.
All right.
All right, let me hit the fancy. Actually, where is that button? There it is. Hang on.
Go straight into it.
Yep.
Cool.
There we go. So, Mike Fricker, you have been compiling this for a little bit now. A very great presentation of all these major features
Well-
coming in 4.13.
Well, last release 4.12 we tried this,
Mhm.
and I think the feedback we got that it was pretty successful. Having normally I just kind of ramble
Mm-hmm.
nonstop about kind of new stuff we're working on or things coming in the release, and I thought last time, okay, let's just put some pictures in since we had already been working on assembling the release notes for the release, and the team had worked hard to get some pictures in. So I was like, okay, let's just make a deck of this and we'll use it on the stream. This time it's a little early. The release notes aren't finished yet, so it's not quite as polished maybe as last release. But that's
Yeah.
okay. It's still a good format, I think. And
Yeah,
as long as you guys like it, we'll try it.
I think it'll be all right. I do have to admit, yeah, we were kind of getting the release notes together a little last minute there, but it's always kind of fast and last minute here. We're always living
It's our
living
style.
on the edge.
Yep.
So yeah, let's take a look, see and what can we dive into here.
Oh, before I go into it, one
Oh, yeah.
thing, because I always do this, is just I want to thank everyone who submitted GitHub contributions.
Yes.
For 4.13. I don't have the exact number yet. I know it's a high number. It's a good number, but it's not fully tallied up, and there might yet still be a few things going in. But I'm sure that'll be shared in an upcoming stream. But definitely thanks a lot for all of the contributions there.
Mhm.
We love seeing so many submissions on GitHub. So appreciate it. Okay, so we'll just go through. They're not in any really specific order, just kind of some random order. And we'll kind of just talk about some of the cool things going on. And then at the end, we'll do a Q&A.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll answer, kind of the best I can, but
Yep.
you guys know, like, I don't always know the answer. Cool. So first we'll talk about Sequencer. So Sequencer kind of went official in 4.12. In 4.13, we've been pushing to add more and more features to it and kind of buttoning it up based off feedback. So it has the main areas is improved sequence recording. And that's kind of what we're showing here in this Senua demo from SIGGRAPH this year, which I think we win the real time. We won the real time
we actually
award for it.
we won SIGGRAPH.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay. Very modest.
no, but we did win that award. Yeah.
There's a real time live competition, which
Yeah.
is just everyone shows cool stuff. And I watched the thing; it was amazing. Everyone showed amazing stuff. Cool, like destructible meat blobs and awesome kind of digital painting in VR. But so we brought this rig to the show, and anyways, Sequencer is a kind of a big part of that. So a lot of it's been adding features so that we could pull this off, along with just things that we didn't quite get in from the previous releases. So things that we have here is we can now do automatic cuts for cameras when you're recording sequences. This is like when you capture live gameplay, or in this case, it was live motion capture data. So if you have a camera that you're capturing, we can automatically kind of create cuts in the tracks for you and switch between cameras for you, which is, we think, pretty cool. It's easier now to record from selected actors, so you can kind of select exactly what actors you want to record, and more so you can choose specific properties on actors.
Mhm.
So in the property recording section, you can go and like choose a class and then pick specific properties that you really care about capturing. And then kind of another thing that we have that's neat is this record to possessable. So if you used Sequencer before, and I know it's kind of new, so maybe a lot of you haven't used it, but it has kind of this fundamental concept that we call spawnables versus possessables. And spawnables are what I think one of the more novel features compared to Matinee, where
Mhm.
you can take actors, anything you've recorded or created in Sequencer, and you can embed it inside the asset itself. So it's kind of like a compartmentalized level in itself that has all these descriptions of things that it needs to spawn. So that's cool. That's how Sequencer worked last release. But now we can record also to possessables, which and possessables are really you just think of it as stuff in your level. And if you used Matinee before, Matinee really only knew how to record or animate stuff in the level. So now Sequencer can go and record live gameplay that affects things that are placed in the map. And that can be good for convenience reasons. Like imagine you had like an elevator in the level and you wanted to kind of just possess the elevator and do like kind of a live recording thing in simulate mode by like dragging the elevator up and recording it. You could do that now.
Yep, and we've had a couple of streams recently in the past with Max Chin and Grayson Edge talking about what you were talking about there, but now we're going to have to bring them back on to show these new features
Yep.
off. And actually, I think Grayson is planned to come up for another training stream, so that should
good.
be interesting.
Cool. So other stuff we can export, maybe this was talked about before, but we can export now and import to CMX and EDL files, which are kind of like a little bit industry standard formats for dealing with scene composition and shots and takes and stuff. So, but in short, right, you can export from Sequencer into, right now we're showing in the background here Adobe Premiere Pro, I believe. And you can kind of get your stuff into there, do shot editing in Premiere if you wanted to, where you can kind of see the rendered out result video footage. And then actually, after when you're done that, you can import it back into Sequencer and bring it back into real time again. So it's kind of just a cool workflow there that for professionals who are doing nonlinear editing. And then finally, for the pictures here on Sequencer, I have this kind of thing showing burn-ins. This is kind of a cool little feature now that is critical if you're doing kind of offline rendered stuff, where you can kind of set up attributes for text to be burned in on top of frames, which is just great for shot reviews and whatnot. A few things I don't have pictures of. You can actually now export animation data directly from Sequencer into FBX and import it too. So you can just take stuff and import it straight into an animation track without having to kind of go through any other workflows. And I think cameras also are supported with that too. And then finally, the OpenEXR support has been improved so that we can do proper kind of HDR color gamut support. Like, this is something that, again, it's kind of on the hardcore side for cinematographers, but it's really, really important if you're doing compositing to have things in the right color space and make the most of your color precision. So now we have like several popular options to choose from, like ACES and 709 sRGB and all this stuff that I don't really know too much about it, but
I was gonna say this is a little outside of my field too, but there's some cinematics people out there. This is for y'all.
Apparently, before games existed, there was this whole world of compositing and offline videos and movies.
Film.
And
What is this?
yeah, they have some formats they liked, so you know we're trying to.
How do I interact with this film you speak of? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Very cool.
Anyway, so some stuff there. Next, we have Media Framework. Okay, so I haven't used this myself yet. I've seen it. Max Pressner's been working hard on it, and he has a great forum thread on this. So if you go on the forums, you can kind of read all about the history here. But in 4.13, it's pretty much like Media Framework 2.0, where the 1.0 is really experimental, and now it's kind of like its first real showcase. For example, it didn't really have audio playback before, so now this is Media Framework is what you use to play movies. So you can play videos in various different formats. You can play audio now. We have H.264 on Windows. It's been cleaned up a bit in the UI, so we have like this kind of playlist editor, media library. It's definitely just been improved kind of throughout. You have your transport controls. I know it's easier to import media now. You can hook it up to blueprints, where before it was kind of rough to do that. It's been made faster. There's GPU accelerated pixel format conversion, and I think the live streaming support through HTTP has been improved too. So basically, it's just been improved all over. And you know, we're going to continue working on it, but we think it's at the point where you could try it out and probably have good results for playing videos in game. Cool. And that's Media Framework. Next, we have a whole slew of animation updates and mesh physics updates.
Oh,
so
this was exciting just to see this one. I remember James Golding posting it.
Was it James? Yeah. Who did Oz did this, right?
Oh, is this? Oh, okay.
I think he made the
He must have
GIF here,
retweeted
but
it then, because I just remember this popping up on my Twitter feed like, what am I? What?
So it's kind of like a cool little VR example of this feature, but the feature that it's being shown is just, so we have procedural meshes, which allow you to construct a mesh dynamically in Blueprint, but this kind of is a new feature that if you have kind of like a closed watertight mesh, you can take a plane and just kind of chop your mesh up dynamically, and you have the option to kind of close off the part that you chopped off and even create a new procedural mesh from the chopped off part. And
Wow.
you can see where, I mean, this is like, you know, it's Sandwich Maker, Sandwich Simulator. So it's just kind of a fun way to show a new little feature. Alembic is now supported. I talked about this
Yeah.
last stream. I don't know if we've had.
I think we talked about it being an up and coming thing in the
Cool.
future, and I know that people have been pinging me about it, like, hey, like, how is that coming? And
Sorry, I
just
don't have-
recently we got the like, okay, like, yeah, we can say it's good.
Yeah, it's been merged into 4.13. The preview should have support for it. So it has the initial feature set. Sorry, I don't have a better picture. We'll maybe do a better picture for the release notes. Like I said, it's kind of scrambled together today. But so the current version you can use in kind of three ways. You can take an Alembic and take one frame from it. And if you don't know what the Alembic is, it's basically just like a way to compress moving vertices, or a way to represent a mesh that maybe was derived procedurally from some offline tool. This is just crazy. It's just doing crazy stuff that would be really hard to represent with traditional, palette skinning, and get that into real time or get that into another environment in a way that you can draw it. So think of it as mostly moving vertices around in for completely freeform ways. So anyways, we have three ways you can use it. Static mesh, where you can take a frame of this and kind of snapshot it to a static mesh and just make a mesh out of it from an asset. And then we have kind of like a geometry cache, which is a new asset type, like a new kind of mesh, which is probably the more traditional way that you'd think of Alembic, where it just sort of plays back like a flipbook, right? So you just have your frames and set the frame rate and it just plays, and that's kind of what we're looking at here. And then finally we have skeletal mesh representation, which uses a skeletal mesh component, but tries to basically, and I don't understand this super well, but uses a PCA compression technique to kind of map, figure out the right base pose spaces, and you can set the quality threshold here to whatever you want to get better results from it. But basically tries to map this kind of thing to a skeletal mesh. So those are kind of the three things we support, and we'll keep going with it in the future, I'm sure.
So on the topic of Alembic,
Sure.
do you know if the integration will support texture animation as well, or are they gonna have to?
I don't think there's any texture animation yet. No,
Okay,
not yet.
since we were already on that topic, thought I'd ask. Alrighty.
Cool. So
This
you
is
guys
my
have probably seen this on
favorite.
Twitter.
This is my absolute favorite new feature right now.
So we've been doing some mad experiments, I guess, with torturing our skeletal meshes here.
We're so good at taking our little default template guy and just abusing him.
Yeah, we were bored with just ragdolls. We needed to just really, really torture them. So the new physics animation component lets you kind of set up motors and impulses and kind of push around your your characters in a way that they can kind of rebound from it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can set up motors and strengths and kind of just let it set it loose on things in Blueprint. But yeah, so cool, fun little thing. I can definitely see lots of cool uses for this that are maybe a little more serious than our example. But
Yeah. We're a little silly here, I know.
so it's still experimental right now, but
Yep. So
Do
so
give it a
anything like
try.
this, give it a shot. Give us your feedback.
cool. So next we have, I guess, kind of like improved facial animation support is the best way to explain it.
This is the most terrifying slide out of all the slides, though.
Alex and I were joking. Is like, I'm not really even sure what I'm showing here because I haven't used this feature yet. But anyways, the idea here is that you have this new pose asset, right? So you can take your pose asset, and it's kind of like an animation, but every key in the animation is a pose. I'm showing a face. You could use it with anything. I don't know. It doesn't have to be a face. But one of the more popular use cases is going to be facial animation or taking Visimi, like audio-driven like mouth animation or like facial action coding system, FACS data, and animating a face with it, right? So you get all these keys that represent poses, and then you can blend freely between them using curves on an animation track. That's the idea. And so we have this new face pose editor. You can see just adjusting weights down here and the rig changing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been getting a lot of questions lately about what we're going to be doing with facial animation stuff.
Cool.
So there's your answer. It's coming. Actually, it's here in preview.
The visual in the top left shows a comparison. So on the left, I think, is kind of like your baked to bones, what we've done historically with facial animation, and the right is showing kind of the flexibility of having kind of these poses that are all predefined, and you have free form blending between them all. So there should be nice quality advantages. Cool. Next is this new tool that I think everyone's going to really like in the animation editor, where you can just now, it's kind of a little confusing here with this little GIF, but in short, like you can just take an animation graph node and click the little eyeball on it and visualize it right there. So without having to go and reroute your nodes to preview an intermediate result, you can just be like, hey, what's this intermediate result look like? And you can see the colors on the eyes mapped to kind of what those things are in the 3D viewport.
Mm-hmm. And that makes a lot of sense for, I guess, not just previewing, but debugging and all that too, because you can start highlighting all the different colors and saying like, oh, let's see what it looks like it's blending here and all that.
Yep.
So
Ignore my typo in the title bar. It's pose, not post. Cool. Next, we have this pose driver animation node. This is one I probably know the least about, but you basically can take a morph target weight and drive a curve value from that based on the bone's movement. So that's what you get. It's experimental, new animation node for this. Try it out. Give feedback to animation guys. Next we have mesh preview. Oh, this has been requested for a long time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this is cool. In the animation and static mesh editors now, you can now set up preview scenes. So you basically, rather than kind of the default gray background with a floor grid, you can now set up kind of like you can create a profile and set up a scene of your choice. You can configure the lighting. You can turn on like a turntable. You can toggle the floor on and off and set up an environment cube, and then easily switch between them, the different profiles. And like I said, this works in the mesh, all the mesh editors, Persona and Static Mesh Editor and whatnot. So that'll be nice for just previewing your stuff without having to always drop it in the world to see it under kind of the lighting conditions that you want. Cool.
This is definitely the big hot one too. It's
Oh,
very
okay.
cool.
Okay. Well, let me do this one first. But I did forget some animation stuff. I do want to go back, but
Oh, okay.
we'll do this one first since it's kind of standalone. Oh yeah. So do you know about this one, Alex?
What, the virtual reality? The template.
Yeah.
I know enough to say that it's amazing, and I've seen these images before. And I believe Tom Lumen made it.
That's right.
Yep, and it's pretty fantastic. And I actually have, I keep seeing these hands and they're grabbing stuff and moving around. And I have some VR gloves, and now I just kind of want to see if I can map it and mess around with it and like
Awesome.
take it further.
Right.
It's a great series of examples of interactivity and movement, which is really what it comes down to in VR. Is that people are trying to come up with good ways of doing that themselves, and well, we just kind of pre-built some basic basic movement and basic interaction stuff in it.
Yep. So this gives you a great starting point for a new VR project. The project settings are already optimized for kind of, VR. It shows you two different means of navigating the scene via teleportation. One works with a gamepad, one is kind of motion controller driven. And then it also, of course, shows you how to use motion controller component and pick up things and kind of have fun with physics. So it's just a good starting point. And so that'll be built in as a project template in 4.13 so you can start any project that way really easily. Okay, let me back up for a second and talk about a few more animation features before I move on from this category. I don't have pictures for all these, but I still want to get them out while we're talking about animation. So we have, on the performance side, morph targets can now be animated on the GPU, so the CPU. Requires Shader Model 5, but basically you just have to go in your project settings, flip on, it's called Use GPU for computing morph targets, and turn that on, and your morph targets will be animated on the GPU, and you get some performance win out of that if you're using a lot of morph targets. Other thing is sub-anim blueprints. So if you have an anim blueprint, sometimes they can get big and gnarly. You can now take it and kind of just like break it up into sub blueprints. So you can take something like, oh, here's the locomotion part of my blueprint or the combat part, and kind of put that in kind of a sub thing. And then any variables on that sub blueprint will be exposed as input pins on the node in the parent blueprint. So you can see how this is similar to like material functions or subroutines in normal blueprints, and that now you have a way that you can kind of organize your scene a little better, organize your graph network a little better. So that's a cool feature coming. We have new profiles for physical animation and physical constraints. This one I think would show rather well. I just don't have stuff for it yet. But you'll see it in the release notes, or we'll have the physics guys on here like Ori, and maybe they can explain it a little better.
Yeah.
But it'll allow you to have pre-configured profiles for constraints in FAT that you set up, the physics asset tool, and then switch between those on the fly. So you can imagine there's certain things you want turned on and off if you're dealing with a character moving around the world, like dangly ponytails and stuff like that, versus, it went into full ragdoll and it needs kind of different rules applied. So now you have kind of an easy way that you can switch between profiles without having to do like direct surgery on the physics asset. And two more things with animation. We have a new animation curve viewer that kind of, it replaces the skeleton curve tab in Persona with just like a general purpose. Any skeleton can view all the curves that are animatable on it, has filtering. It's just like a nice kind of UX usability thing there to make it easier to work with animation curves. That's it. That's all I had for animation. Okay, cool. So let's move on. So we did pre-VR template. The other thing I want to mention for VR is there's kind of your normal set of all the round bug fixes and improvements for VR and UE4. We do have some performance stuff. For example, stereo instancing is faster now, particularly on PS4. So definitely check out that option. It's a project setting. that gets you, depending on your game, maybe up to 10% faster VR rendering.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes faster, actually. Cool. Next, we'll go into VR Editor. So VR Editor, every release we're still working on it. We're going to keep adding features and kind of figuring out what this thing is, right? It's still experimental. You can get to this guy by starting with 412. You can go under experimental and find the checkbox that says allow editing while in VR. Turn that sucker on.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see a new toolbar button on the top of the editor toolbar that says VR mode, and you can just flip back and forth into VR, and you can kind of use motion controllers to edit the scene.
Yep.
And this is, of course, I say this every time, it's just like super kind of early and forward-looking kind of experimental project that, we have kind of like a small team on that we're going to continually like absorb feedback from the community, look at what everyone else is doing, and try to find, like, get there on the ground floor and build some cool, hopefully really useful, eventually tool for editing scenes in VR. So anyways, in the new version, you can now play from VR, so you can click play right away and go straight into VR, just like you could in the desktop editor. Before, you couldn't really do that. We also have now texture and vertex painting, so you can now use just the traditional kind of vertex and texture painting tools that are available in the normal editor, and you can use the motion controllers to paint using the lasers on objects. All the normal kind of settings work.
We're calling them lasers.
We call them lasers always here.
Oh, I've been calling them like lightsabers, but I guess
We're
that's
not allowed to use
technically owned by someone else. I've been calling them the sabers.
We call them laser pointers. Just as an aside, like, one of the things we're looking into is kind of other interaction methods. Like, the lasers are great. They're good for painting, actually.
Yeah.
They're good for certain UI things, but sometimes you just want to grab stuff. So we're experimenting with some different types of interactions in VR to make it maybe a little more natural, more one-to-one when you're interacting with things. So, but that's like future release stuff.
The future ideas where you can get like the hands in there. Maybe you do like the finger points, like Fonzie style, like hey, and then that's how you paint, and then you can grab stuff. Sure, it'll be fun.
Cool. So we also have foliage painting. The foliage tool now works in VR, so you can paint and erase foliage. On your motion controllers, if you're using a Vive or if you have Oculus Touch or development kit, there'll be a face button on either controller that you can hold, and that will kind of reverse what the trigger does, so you can paint and erase, or it can have some other effect depending on what you're doing. VR Editor, other features, we added the color picker. This is kind of cool for painting, right? Without a color picker. So the color picker will now pop up if you need it. You can move it around just like any floating UI in the VR Editor. We have a new transform gizmo that's just kind of easier to use for most objects. The rotation is way better than it was before. The rotation was kind of a little bit of a disaster before. Now it's pretty awesome. It's really one-to-one.
And that's kind of the thing is we're developing this. It's not like we have like a ton of other things to reference. So it's like you guys are kind of figuring it out as you go, and your feedback from the people out there using it. Please, we need your feedback because
the feedback is awesome.
it's very important because we can't go out and pick up the book on like, oh yes, how to make a VR editor engine.
That's right.
And all that. There's not anything like that.
Yeah, it's all an open discussion with the whole VR community about what creativity looks like in VR. Something that I'm pretty passionate about, but I recognize this is still early, right? We're getting in there. We're trying stuff just like everyone is, and we're quick to adopt best practices when they come. So, and hopefully we can help inform that stuff with our examples. So yeah, new color picker, new transform gizmo, easier to use, more fun. We also have you have a flashlight now in VR. Kind of cool. If you need to see stuff, it can actually be useful, and you can take screenshots now just by clicking the screenshot button right on your quick menu. Quick menu is available just by looking or aiming at kind of where your watch would be if you had a watch on your hand. And then I think finally there's another feature. I don't have a picture for it, but in 4.13, if you've enabled that option for VR editing, there's another option adjacent to that in the menu called Enable Automatic Entry into VR. I think it's on by default. So what will happen is if you have VR Editor turned on, you can just pick up your HMD and put it on your face, and it'll just put you into VR. It detects that it's on your head and just throws you in. If you take it off, it goes back to desktop mode. So you can just like flip back and forth without having to like fumble with keys or anything like that.
Yeah, I think Lauren posted a GIF of herself putting it on and off.
Is it on Twitter or is it posted already?
I think she posted up on Twitter. So yeah, if you haven't seen it yet, it's pretty useful just for quick testing with VR games.
Cool. Okay. So moving on from VR, we'll go into UI stuff. Oh wait. Oh
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, I stuck this in.
Yep. This is I mean,
This is
pretty cool.
414, but I was like, oh, we're showing all this other VR editor stuff. Might as well show it.
But yeah, technically this 414, but technically still on GitHub, so you can get early access to this one, right?
So this is actually done by Trung Lee, one of our
Mhm.
awesome interns
Yeah,
right now.
super nice guy, super cool.
Yep. And he got this working in just less than a week. Actually, got it working, and it's pretty awesome. It's really fun to paint on terrain in VR. So that'll be coming in 414. We didn't want to jam it in too late in this one. Okay. UI, since this kind of overlaps VR, I thought we'd do this one first. And you might have seen Nick Darnell's posts about this already, but what we did is made it kind of easier for you to customize how you interact with 3D widgets in VR. Before there was just kind of the one way that you click on 3D widget components, and that went through our kind of regular mouse handling. But everyone was asking like, hey, like I don't always want to use the mouse. I want like a gun, a virtual hand, anything to be able to press these buttons or move these sliders. So now there's a new widget interaction component that lets you kind of control. Your player controller will basically get the events, and you can route them to this thing and do whatever you want with those events.
Yep.
And you have full control over how things get touched on your widget components now. And as you can imagine, like when we did VR Editor, we instantly needed this ability. So some of this tech kind of came about from the VR Editor project, and we kind of Nick Darnell did a great job boxing it up and putting it in a really easy to use component for you guys.
Yeah, that guy's always doing something awesome. If he's not making the issues tracker for fun, then he's doing this for, why not?
Yeah, for fun. It's true. I mean, it's true, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we had Nick on just to talk about this and a few other things that he's been with the issues tracker and all that. But yeah, like he's amazing. We got to get him on for more of these talks.
Cool. Next thing is we have support for Paper 2D sprites on UI. This is kind of a short one, but
I'm just gonna throw this out here for you guys asking about Paper 2D. Look, yeah, I swear, like Michael's been making bug fixes and some additional changes as well. If you hit him up on Twitter, he'll talk to you about it. But things are happening there. There you go.
Yeah. So this is more a performance thing, but it's also kind of nice if you have sprites set up and you won't end up wanting to use them in UMG, which it's a nice 2D image that's set up. Like, why wouldn't you want to use them in both? So. But here you get better performance, right? Because you can custom atlas your sprites just the way that you want. And if there happen to be atlas on a texture and you assign them to brushes in UMG or Slate, we can draw them all in one pass, which gets you like way faster performance. If you used a regular wrap panel here with regular Slate brushes on different textures, this would have been 105 draw calls, which means relatively slow as dirt. So you can use the sprites to actually get better performance out of your UI. And then another thing I don't have a picture for, but we've added a bunch of new localization features, which is helpful if you're, obviously making a game that you're going to ship all over the place. We have kind of like, if you're familiar with our localization syntax, we kind of have this markup language that you can kind of like trigger rich text or inline things. And now we've added things for plural forms, gender forms, and also some additional features for Asian languages like Korean, post positions, and just basically these cases that you run into when you're trying to localize your game should be easier to do things like plurals and genders now. There'll be a lot more information in the release notes about that. Cool. Some platform stuff. tvOS now. Yep. We had it was experimental, I think, in 4.12. Now it's like full on. It's in the binary. You load up from the launcher, file package project, go straight to tvOS as long as you've installed the components from the launcher. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, whole new platform.
Good job, platform team.
Yay. Thanks, Josh, and all them.
On the mobile side, there's actually a whole bunch of good improvements for mobile, but one of the cool things here is we now support custom post-process materials, where before this just didn't work at all. Now it will just kind of work even on mobile hardware. It requires you to have the mobile HDR option set, so if you're not using mobile HDR, it won't show. And there's a few restrictions, I think, like I think you can't use pixel depth or something like that. But so there's a few restrictions compared to desktop materials, but generally it's pretty cool. You can do nice custom post-process on mobile now. Other stuff on mobile, I'm just gonna leave this picture here because I don't have pictures for the other ones. We have Android ES 3.1 support that gets ES 3.1 support on Android, so that gets you new features, right? You get 16 texture samples, uniform buffers, so presumably better performance. Brings it kind of up to parity with Metal and Vulkan. We have Amazon Game Circle support, which is kind of like, I don't know, it's the online gaming community system and friends stuff for Amazon platform. So that works on Android now. In this release, lighting channels are supported on the rendering side. That's awesome for cinematics or anything kind of special case stuff you need to do with lights. You can turn on lighting channels, or if you're using them, they'll just work, I think. We have a new material option that shows in the material editor for full precision materials on mobile. Before, I think materials are all half precision in Pixel Shader on mobile, but now you can opt for full precision, which is it's pretty much critical if you're doing anything in world space where you have just crazy coordinates, like variance in coordinate systems or variance in coordinate values. So you can set that now, and if you're doing kind of like world position offset stuff with large values, you might want to turn on full precision material. And dynamic shadows got faster on mobile. We now have better culling for static primitives when you're using dynamic cascaded shadow maps. So that's just another cool thing. Again, like all these things I'm kind of rattling here in the release notes will have more detail as usual.
Yeah, and maybe a few more still images and all that too, and all that. Then also these images aren't even the final ones that you'll be seeing in the release notes, so you'll see kind of updated stuff in there too.
Yep, that's right.
And yeah, I do like to hear the faster dynamic shadows, especially because that's something that a lot of people I've talked to that are working on mobile. It's always about shadows and shadows and shadows and working and rendering.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. This one's really cool, I think. I stole some footage here. I give credit at the bottom from YouTube vid because I didn't bother making a replay today. But so this is a cool thing. If you're updating your game, a lot of games these days are live games, right, that you update. And I'm showing Paragon here, of course. But the network system now has kind of inherent support for backwards compatibility, which means you can kind of change your game a lot, delete properties, add properties, kind of change a surprising amount of structure to your gameplay, and existing replay data that you have will hold up, which is pretty hard to say the least. And the team has been working really hard on it for a long time, but everyone benefits from this. Obviously, we added it so Paragon could have replays that were more sturdy, but it's built into the engine. It should work with any game as long as you set up your replication kind of normally for UE4. There's cases, of course, where sometimes you need manual steps to keep things backwards compatible, and we have mechanisms for that. I think for C++ programmers on the farchive structure, there's like a engine netfer and game netfer. You can go and look at those versions and kind of like do some handling for stuff. If you've completely removed a weapon from the game, for example, it's pretty hard to be backwards compatible. But if it's on a lesser scale, you can handle stuff like that. So definitely a cool feature if you're planning to have multiplayer and replays, which we think is awesome. If anyone doesn't know that you can do replays in UE4, like definitely use this stuff in your game if you can. There's all kinds of cool uses for it.
Yeah, I think there's a tutorial somewhere about, or a training stream we did with Sequencer. It might have been at GDC where they talk about the whole replay system, but it's in the Twitch archive somewhere, and it's impressive. It's just built into Sequencer. Now you have it for any game you need it for.
Yeah, Sequencer can create live recordings from replays, but like what we're seeing here is just straight up real-time playing back network stream. So it has nothing to do with Sequencer right here. You don't need it at all. It's just basically if you've made your game multiplayer, which kind of happens by default if you're coding in UE4, just by how the gameplay framework's set up. If you're using the network settings properly, then your game already can be replayed, and you just kind of have to trigger it and capture it and trigger it and have a UI for it, and you kind of get these awesome features out of UE4 automatically. Maybe it's something that we should do another stream on, though.
Yeah, well, probably, because we haven't covered that then, and I thought we had.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Cool. And thank you, Mr. Big Russ 666, for your animation that I used here.
Yeah, thanks, Big Russ.
He's busy playing Paragon.
Someone's going to tell him about this later and be like, what?
Cool. So just some more kind of hodgepodge features to get through. So you can now cast line traces, raycasts, otherwise known as, and you can opt to get texture coordinate information back from that. We'll have better pictures of this later probably, but as you can imagine, you can do really cool kind of effects if you can figure out the UVs that are underneath impacted point. So that's kind of a cool new feature. To use this, there's a new fine collision UV function. And it's a project setting that you have to turn on to get this. And of course, if you have the setting on, it's going to use a little bit more memory. I think that means we have to keep the UVs from a mesh on the CPU, not just on the GPU. So it uses a little bit more memory. Just something to keep in mind. But otherwise, I don't think it's any more expensive. Cool. here's a really popular one around here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you can now kind of use blueprints to just draw stuff to a render target, kind of using normal canvas functions or whatever you want. But this is cool, right? Because you can obviously paint. If you can draw to a render target and use that render target as a texture, you can paint stuff, like shown on the left example. But you can also kind of use it as a feedback loop, right? Where you draw stuff and you're just using it as a buffer of data, and then you read that back in next time, and then you do stuff with it, math, and then draw stuff again, right? So
Wow.
it gives you a way to have kind of data that all stays on the GPU that you can go use over and over again in multiple frames. So you can see both of these were done entirely with Blueprint, no custom shader code, just material system, like material network, graph networks, and
Yeah.
blueprints.
Yeah, I take it as like a line trace that's just saying to draw the material
Paint
there.
there, yeah.
Yeah, wow, that's incredible. I'm have to plan a stream for that one for sure.
Yeah.
And chat is loving it too, so
Cool.
great work.
Yeah, it's great for prototyping. So this kind of goes hand in hand, but we've improved scene capture, and the main reason was to make it easier to splat stuff into Blueprint or into render targets from Blueprint. So when you use the 2D scene capture now, you have a lot more options. You can do orthographic projections rather than just perspective. You can set the size of it. You can opt to use to capture opacity now. So this capture source, you'll be able to set like, hey, I want the opacity in the alpha channel. We've had no way to do that before 4.13. This is a really, really cool feature where you can capture the alpha. You can capture depth as well. There's quite a few like gbuffer things that you can kind of capture now, which is going to be great for kind of if you want to composite results, for example, like a fog of war or something like that you could do. And I think we have the option here too where you can selectively hide and show actors in the capture. So this is another thing where like sometimes you don't want your whole scene in the capture, even though it's sitting there in the world. So you can selectively like choose what to include when you're doing the capture. But yeah, so that just goes kind of hand in hand with the render target rendering from Blueprints. Next thing, Voronoi noise material. So we already had a noise material node, and it's been improved. I think generally it's been improved. I think it's faster overall and everything. So we've done some improvements there. But the cool new thing is kind of this Voronoi filtering, which is like one of the best things ever for doing any kind of procedural looking stuff. Has really good results for that. So any kind of procedural materials you're doing, you can set the quality levels. If you increase the quality level, you'll have less graded artifacts, but it will be significantly slower at render time. Often what we do is we end up baking these things down and not rendering them every single frame, but you can choose to do that or not to. And we have some options too, so you can set tiling amount. I don't think that existed before in the noise material node. Yeah, so you can see pretty cool, pretty fun stuff. I'm sure it will be useful. And then kind of another cool thing that we have now is a picture from Fortnite, of course, work in progress, is shadow map caching, which is an awesome feature that Daniel Wright just put in, that lets you take movable point lights and spotlights and kind of cache their shadow map results between frames. And so this is kind of with what we were doing before in Fortnite, and this is kind of the after, now that we can have a whole bunch of point lights all shadow casting with cache shadow maps, and you can see like there's lights in all the different buildings here too, and get high performance results from that, because frame to frame we're not having to touch those shadow maps. We're just drawing the geometry, masking against it again, so we don't need to go and update them every frame. So the cool thing too is I think this is just on by default. I think Daniel was able to just turn it on for everything. So I think it's, as long as your light is set to movable and it's a point light or spotlight, then anything that's static or stationary in its radius of influence will have a cache shadow map generated for it. So it's great if your game has a lot of geometry that's influenced by lights, but hey, it doesn't move around a whole lot. Like your whole world isn't moving around. Like Fortnite has these characteristics. So we're excited to see it working in this. So. But I think it'll be useful in a lot of games. I think there's only a few rules, like you don't want your receiver geometry to be using like world position offset and just gyrating around. Like your shadow map's not going to work if it's cached and your object's deforming in the vertex shader. So there's a few things like that, but generally it should be pretty general purpose. Okay, a few more rendering things I had on the list to talk about. One is, I think in the last release we showed particle cutouts.
Yeah, yeah.
Was it the last release? Yeah.
Yeah, to
For
better
flipbooks.
optimize, the particle flipbooks by kind of cutting out all the extraneous stuff.
Yep. So now that feature works on all particles. Basically, when we generate drive data, we'll go and create mesh geometry around every particle, so that to just reduce the overdraw across the board on all the particles.
Oh, so not just the flipbook ones, but
Not just the flipbook.
all
anything.
particles.
Yeah. Because why bother drawing this stuff outside the masked region? So that just happens. It should just happen automatically on all particles.
so that's got to be a massive performance boost.
Yeah.
That's
so.
awesome.
Yep. And the other thing we have is pixel normal offset for refraction. So the refraction node, there's a new option in the combo box where you can say offset from pixel normal. So basically this feature is just used to do more beautiful water. In fact, that water that I showed earlier with the blueprint render target was using this feature. Basically, if you set that option for pixel normal offset, it's going to give you a value that's how different is the pixel normal than the vertex normal. Where normally we don't even look at the vertex normal, just look at the pixel. So it gives you that offset, which is going to let you do a much more realistic refraction. So it's kind of a new feature that you should check out if you're doing any kind of liquids. Cool. Okay, that's all I have for slides. I had a few more last things I just want to mention that I didn't have pictures of. I know in 4.13 we have a new spline editing tool. I haven't even seen it myself yet, but I hear it's awesome.
Oh,
so
yeah.
editing splines is way more fun. We've added multi-threaded audio playback as an experimental feature just to get more performance on GameThread by offloading audio mixing to a worker thread. So that should be in 4.13. That should just help turn it on. It's experimental right now. You have to opt in, but you can try it out. On the coding side, just kind of a nice little thing for coders in C++. All set or T-sets now could be properties, like U properties, and be serialized, which is really nice because we had a T-map not so long ago, and now we have T-set, which is just as useful. So you can't use them in Blueprint, and you can't. I don't think they show up in the editor yet, but you can at least serialize them. They're full on support for.
I've been seeing a lot of excited devs about that one.
Yeah, it's just a little thing, but those things help a lot.
Yep.
On Mac now we have Shader Model 5 support. So this unlocks a whole bunch of features on Mac that just didn't work before on Shader Model 5, like DFAO, parallel rendering, reflections are just faster, eye adaptation, certain post effects, distance field shadows, basically features that require SM5, which we have a lot of them now. Will now work on Mac if you turn that stuff on. So another cool thing we get. And then finally on landscape, there's a kind of a slew of little improvements that'll be in the release notes. But basically, memory usage is better, tessellation is faster. We have support for importing new landscape heightmaps from different formats, and there's a plugin set up for that now. So you can add like a new landscape importer pretty easily through a C++ plugin. So
that's pretty impressive.
Yep, some good stuff there. I think that's just about it. Yeah, like. I'm getting into progressively towards more of the minor stuff, so I'll stop there, and maybe it's a good time to do Q&A.
All right. Well, I think I'm going to go a little bit backwards in the questions here because a lot of people want to ask you the status of Niagara.
Oh, sure. Oh, okay. So I've been working on this every week with the guys, so it's definitely moving along at a good pace. The core. And this is again where it'd be better to have Simon and Olaf and those guys on the show, and because those are the guys that are working on it.
We'll have to have a future stream once it's actually going to be in a major build.
But yeah, progress is going good. The core simulation rendering stuff is progressing steadily every week and getting better and better.
Nice.
And with more features. The tool side is basically we're rebooting the whole tool side of things. The existing prototype that I think you guys have access to if you turn on if you opt into it, it's on the super rough side. So and we knew that it was a proof of concept, right? So we're rebooting the whole thing on the tool side, and every week that design is coming together, and we have some ideas, and I think we'll start building up the UI pretty soon, but. I mean, it's still got a ways to go. No joke. It's a big project, and
it's going to be a huge new system.
It will be, and we have Cascade there, right? So it's not like you can't make particles. Cascade is still really good for real-time effects, but we want this to be a quantum leap beyond that, and we don't want to kind of just rush this in and not. like kind of like what we did with Matinee and Sequencer. We need the chasm to be like on that level, right, between
Yeah.
the two.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be satisfied unless we can hit that. And it's interesting as we get into the design of Niagara and how the tools work. We can see parity with kind of other systems in the engine, and how maybe the future of materials or the future of these other systems might look like. It's funny how every new tool we build kind of raises the bar, and then you start thinking about, wow, man, like when we do this other thing, then the reboot this other thing, it's going to be so awesome.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the stage we're in right now, where it's exciting to work on the design for it, but it's still. Honestly, it's still early. Like, we've still got a ways to go. The runtime is further ahead than the tool side, and generally tools take a lot of time. Like they do, to do a really high quality job of. So, I guess that's enough for now.
Yeah. And then
Stay
and then,
tuned.
yes. So it's stay tuned, but progress is being made steadily.
Yeah,
So,
there's nothing secret about it. We'll be open the whole time.
Yeah.
If you guys have questions, like we could probably find a more regular way to share updates, even on the concept side of.
Yeah,
things.
like maybe I'll talk to Olaf and them and see about maybe if they want to come hang out on the forums and just do like a brief like where are we going kind of thing. So that could be interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's see here. Does improved 2D scene capture have clip plane support? If not, would you consider accepting a PR for that?
Good question. I don't think it does. I didn't see an option for it, at least when I looked, and I don't remember it in the release notes. Good question. That seems like a no-brainer, though.
Yeah, I mean, if you got a PR for it, I mean.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if maybe there'd be a way to do it yourself, with a custom post process or something when you render the scene capture. Not sure. Yeah, but yeah,
a little above
good
me.
suggestion. I didn't see it in the UI though.
Alrighty. Let's see here. The BP scene render, can this be used for custom renders like volume rendering and other weird ones?
I don't think you can render 3D textures. I think only 2D render targets are supported. Could you do something volumetric with that? I don't know, maybe. Not sure. But I think it's just 2D right now. 2D render target, you customize the size and everything, and then there's a variety of new Blueprint functions. You can use canvas light functions. I didn't really even scratch the surface with that. There's a lot of stuff you can do with that. But I think it's probably easiest if you grab 413 and kind of check it out, and see how you like it.
All right. Let's see here. Will Blueprint render targets be usable for hit masks, like for blood or on skeletal meshes?
Blood on skeletal mesh is interesting.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to do that.
I don't see why not. Yeah, I don't see why not. That probably would work, right? That kind of projection. Yeah.
So there's a question about the VR template, and Tom answered it in chat, but I wanted to repeat all of it here because I think it's pretty interesting stuff. But he had said that someone had asked, the templates for VR are there for Vive and Rift, but not specific for mobile platforms. And apparently there's a second level in the templates.
There's two levels.
Yeah, there's two levels. One is more desktop oriented and another's more mobile oriented.
Oh, yeah.
So load up the other level if you're doing mobile and check that one out instead. But if you're on Vive or Rift, then the first level should be fine for you.
I believe it works with PSVR too.
Oh yeah, sorry, PSVR.
Yeah.
Also throwing that one out there, it's pretty neat. Yeah. Let's see here. When are we getting the Steam SDK updated so we can use OpenVR better?
I'm not sure about that one.
All right, that one probably have to get someone specific to come
I mean,
back
usually we'll try to update SDKs
Mm-hmm.
and keep up with VR stuff. I don't know when that one's coming though.
Yeah. All right.
We're usually pretty on the ball with getting updated as fast as possible though.
Yeah, so I'm sure that
if it doesn't hit in 413, it'll probably come in a dot.
Yeah, a hot fix or something, which is what we've done in the past with like Oculus updates and stuff, where if we don't quite sync up with our release schedule and theirs, then we have to just kind of hot fix it in real quick. But shouldn't be a problem. Is Vertex Anim done on GPU or CPU, and is it supported on Android?
Are you talking about Alembic Vertex animation?
I guess so, yeah.
Mm.
That would probably be the context of that.
I'm actually not sure if we have GPU support for that yet.
Yeah, and generally on mobile, when you start talking about taxing both GPU and CPU, I just imagine the phone getting incredibly hot, and it's just not going to... Phones are incredibly powerful these days, but still have their limits. Always something to take into consideration. The audio rework you guys are planning on doing, is this in the same vein that you did with Sequencer for Matinee, or is just optimization?
No, the new audio system is a whole huge,
New
completely separate
system.
thing that's completely different than what we have now. It's still ongoing. Yeah, it'll be a big jump in quality and feature improvements.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right. Let's see here. Does Google VR plugin work for iOS devices? I wouldn't.
Google VR plugin?
I don't know. I don't think that one.
I don't think so.
No, I wouldn't think that you'd package to Google VR and it go to iOS. So, or to Daydream, I should say. Hang on. So back to Sequencer and importing and exporting FBXs. What about importing camera from 3D applications directly to Sequencer?
I think that's supported.
Yeah, like if you're in Maya and you make like a whole track with your
That's right.
camera. I think we've seen that before. It might even be a Grayson Edge live stream on that one.
Yeah, we used to have that in UE3. Matinee actually had that feature. But so 4.13 should have that. So cameras, import, export, along with some of their attributes like focal length and whatnot, and animation, like animation data from characters and objects, should be importable and exportable.
All right.
Whenever we can, we want to be bidirectional to, to some point. We want to be bidirectional with other software packages because, I mean, we can't, at least right now, we can't realistically expect you to stay in the engine the whole time when you're building the highest quality stuff ever. So.
Yeah, and we've seen that with like what they've been doing with Sequencer. It's more compatible with third-party software when you want to export it, import it, and mess around with it. So yeah, makes sense. Do you know anything about us adding in input remapping nodes or the ability to at runtime change your input mapping?
Good question. I'm not sure about that one. No, I haven't heard anything lately.
All right.
It seems like a good idea. In C++, you can do that.
Yeah,
I know what you mean.
BP and all that.
I've run into that myself where I've wanted that. That's actually a good suggestion.
Good
sure
suggestion.
Yeah, no, that is.
Yeah, there might be a feature request for it, but that's all right. Let's see here. Does anyone here do Daydream development? Has a phone controller working? Okay, so this one's more about doing Daydream with Wi-Fi on the launch game. Fortunately, I don't think we're going to have a good answer on that one. It's a little too technical and a little specific. So sorry about that. Are there any plans on extending or reworking the session node implementations? If not, do you guys accept rework nodes via PR or would you reject them?
I don't know what the session node is. I think like online session framework.
Yeah. For that, we might have to get an online person to.
I don't know if there's plans for a rework of it. But that stuff is fairly new. I think it was just 4.11 that we had that blueprint interface, right? It's not that old. I mean, I'm sure it's still, we're looking at continuously improving it.
Okay, cool. Do you plan to support SSAO using a separate depth buffer pass with the forward renderer or some other dynamic AO?
No idea.
Okay.
Not sure. We are working on a forward renderer. It's not in this release, but upcoming, either 4.14 or the next. Hopefully, we'll have a version of something. If it's still kind of a prototype, but we're hoping it works out. Could be awesome.
All right. Cool. If you could have any feature ever just magically it happened, what would it be? I like that question.
I guess like for me, if we had time and resources to do it right now.
Yeah, no, it's not even that. Like it just exists.
Oh, it just exists. It just appeared in UE right now.
Yeah.
It would probably be like procedural world creation, kind of a suite of stuff to like make stuff from scratch that lets you kind of massage like some awesome AI algorithm to build something fantastic for you.
It's the load up meshes hit make game button.
Pretty much.
That's what it sounds like you're talking about.
We'll get there.
We're getting all the way to make game button, just one step at a time. Let's see here. Vulkan support being improved so it works for PC builds and not just mobile.
It's work in progress.
Okay.
Yep. It's not ready yet.
Okay, but coming. Do you have a status update for mesh decals?
Nope.
Nope.
I don't think so.
All right. Okay. we're getting like so many questions in, and I'm now at this point trying to keep up with what you guys are up to. Sorry about that. Do you have any information about a potential Toon shader or Cell shader pre-built in the engine?
I don't think so. I don't know if
No.
we would do that. I
No.
mean, like, what would be the advantages of building it in, I guess, over what you could pull off with custom lighting model? Or, I mean, we have a stylized game we showed on the screen, Fortnite.
Mhm.
Already. It's not Toon, I guess. It's not like anime style Toon. Maybe that's what they're looking for, is something more like that.
Mm.
I could see it being a little.
It might be more of like a training stream for the people that are specifically using that kind of thing then versus a thing that we pre-build.
It's definitely like a selective set of features you need from
Mhm.
the current like HDR render on desktop. You don't need like it definitely. I could see how focusing on that, you'd make some different choices and get a different set of features you'd want to use. But I don't think there's any plans for us to go and have like an option just change the whole lighting model to favor that.
Oh, okay. There might be a PR for it that we have to comment on then. Interesting. Sorry. Oh my gosh, so fast. You guys, come on.
I
Okay.
can't see the chat, so I'm
I
totally
know
relying
it's
on you.
flying. It's flying by. So this is what we get for showing off a ton of features. Everyone has a question for each different feature. Okay, so yeah.
The nice thing is that 413 Preview 1 is out now.
Yep.
So you can just try it out.
Okay.
See what it does.
Is the AI team going to? Is the AI team going to be bringing in updates from more stuff from Paragon?
Absolutely. I'm sure anything that is deemed reusable from Paragon work will make it into the engine. I know Miesco's very passionate about that.
All right. Oh goodness, I just caught wind of the time. We're getting a ton of more questions in. Unfortunately, Q&A will probably go on for quite a while. Please come to the forums and leave your questions there. We'll try to get back to them and also create a more permanent, reservoir of all of the questions and answers. So please, if I hadn't got a chance to get to your question or I missed it because chat is flying by at 100 miles an hour, please, I should probably put on some kind of slowdown, but please do ask us on the forums. We'd love to get back to you on all these things. And also that way I can grab other developers who might be more in that particular section. We do get some really specific stuff in here too. So thank you so much to everyone who came out and had questions though. When does Q&A end is the last question. Right now. So thank you all so much for coming out. Please send your questions to the forums. If you're looking to join in the Game Jam, again, the August Game Jam is going to be kicked off next week, so go ahead and pre-register. Mike, thank you so much for coming out and talking about all this. If there's anything else you want to throw out there, I think that's all that we have for the day. But yeah, thank you so much, and thanks to everybody out there.
Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.